Hello and welcome to Sterling Armory's Sword Talk. This is episode 48, I believe it is. That's probably completely wrong, but I think it's 48. If you're new here, we are sword makers at Sterling Armory, and we talk about all things swords in our sword vlog here that we do, or Sword Talk. And we also have a guest on, so tonight is a fun episode where we do have a guest on tonight. So excited to talk to them. But yeah, my name is Chris. Again, sword maker, aerospace engineer, and then on my normal job. And then I'll bring on our first guest here, which is Warbear from Sterling Armory. Looking majestic.
Thank you. I was trying to lay it on.
Colton normally joins us as well, but he's not able to make it tonight, sadly. But we do have a guest. So before we bring our guest on, you want to do a quick intro?
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm, as always, Joshua Von Warbear, your loving Uncle Warbear, and I'm a prop maker, a concept artist, and blade maker. Try and do a little bit of everything. And
yeah.
Sorry. Text is on.
Yeah.
You can find me at Warbear_Armory or Joshua Von on Instagram or Joshua Von Warbear on Facebook. Reach out, say hi, start a conversation.
Yeah, and Sterling Armory's on. We do have a webpage, but I wouldn't bother going there. Sterling Armory. Yeah. Sterling Armory on Facebook is where most of our traffic is. Also Instagram, and if you found us here on YouTube, then you found us here. So, if you want to check out, we do get a lot of questions, especially lately, on what we have in stock and what's available. So if you do have that question, always go to our Facebook page, check out what we have recently posted, because everything we make is one of a kind. We're not a full-on production house. We just make what we like and sell it. So there's a lot of images online and if something shows still available, then it is. So we'll say it's sold when it's sold. So yeah. With that, ready to bring on our guest. So if you follow a lot of Sterling Armory stuff, we compete all over the U.S. as well, mainly out west because that's where the tournaments are. And tonight's guest is one of the great cutters out there that competes with us.
The Ryan.
Shapiro, thanks for joining us from
Hello.
Tattersall, is that correct?
Tattersall School of Defense, that's right.
Yes, which is out in the SoCal area. Actually, I'm always actually a little confused on exactly where you're at because I know where RJ's school is in SoCal.
Yeah.
Are you near there?
My location, the location that I teach at is out of Long Beach, California. But we have a couple of other locations too. So there's one in DC. There's one more central as well.
Oh, DC, really?
Yeah.
So nice.
Because there used to be a tournament in DC, right?
So Lord Baltimore's Challenge, run by David Biggs. So he's Tattersall, and so we provide the insurance as part of that. But yeah.
Okay. They still do that, like the tournament.
Yes, it's kind of changed formats a little bit. There's no cutting on it, unfortunately, but he does trying to. But yeah, so he kind of changes the formats, just kind of depending. But he tries to bring SCA and HEMA people together, and he is one of the cool things that he's able to do with that is bring in a lot of instructors, not only through the U.S. but also Europe, come in to teach classes and instruct and all sorts of really cool stuff.
Very cool. Yeah, another thing we want to do too is more and more tournaments are in the UK and in Europe are doing cutting as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get to one of those soon. That'll be exciting. For those watching, before we usually have a topic that we discuss, and we have a couple we're going to go through today. But before we dive into that, we talk about what we're drinking. So I'll go ahead and start. Oh, this is cold. This is super cold. So I found some Wee Beastie as it drips all over my phone here. It is a 5-year Scotch, they'll call it. Actually, they don't like the term Scotch over there, so they just call it whiskey. So yeah, that's what I'm drinking out of my old George and the Dragon. Pretty sweet.
I this evening am partaking of Kingus Mijad, which is of course Ancient Scandinavian for Viking.
Pronounce that one again.
The Mod. Plateau Barada. Yep. Some poor handsome fool left this bottle at my house, and now I will be drinking it alone. Alone.
Wasn't me.
So alone.
Straight from the bottle.
That stuff's really good.
In my fancy. Oh, it's good. Shit. Oh.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
Yeah. Ooh.
Isn't that
Straight
good?
from the bottle, as the Vikings did back in the day.
Yes.
So I was watching one of the past Sword Talks, and you had this really cool Sterling Armory mug.
Yeah.
And I felt a little sad I didn't have one. All I got is a hat, so I made my own.
Yeah.
I think I got it kind of close. Maybe a flashback to the 90s. There is
90s Diamond S.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Could be a name brand from the past if you grew up in the 90s like me. But Sterling Armory, exactly as intended.
Perfect.
It's perfect.
There's Stella in here, so I figured that's kind of close.
Merch off of that. Yeah, holy hell.
What you drinking there, though? Did you say?
Stella. So this is beer.
Oh, okay.
Or unfinished whiskey, as they say.
Yeah. They make a really good cider.
They do, yeah.
They actually do a rosé cider, too. I thought it was very, pinkies up.
I'm not that fancy.
All right, so what we wanted to talk about today is do a recap. So all of us came back from Fright Fight. It's been, 2 or 3 weeks now?
Yeah.
Fright Fight was the weekend before Halloween. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
25th, 26th, 27th, something like that. 28th.
We did. I was doing a running vlog throughout the whole thing, but it hasn't dropped yet, so I have a lot of editing to do on that. And then hopefully that will drop.
It'll release next year, right before 2025's Fright Fight.
Yeah, if it's anything like last year, it'll take me a year to edit it.
Yeah.
But no, this year it ran a lot smoother. Obviously, it's the second year they did it, so Russell did a phenomenal job.
He did.
Running the whole tournament. So Ryan took gold in advanced longsword, which is pretty sweet. Yep. I think a lot of us were cutting. Or wait,
no, I got silver.
Silver. Sorry, yeah, you took gold at Combat Con.
Combat Con. Yeah,
Combat Con was a couple. Was 2 months ago, 3 months ago?
Yeah, it seems like.
So yeah, Ryan took gold. Sorry, at Combat Con. I'm getting all my cuttings mixed up. And then RJ took gold, right, at Fright Fight with some serious sweet cuts. Yeah.
It was another really close tournament.
It was.
Too.
I think everyone was doing
top 4.
Yeah, everyone was on point. So we had some very fun feats that we hadn't had in a while, which I thought was cool. So thanks to Phil for creating some really fun feats. I totally forgot. Should have got some video ready so we can actually watch that live here, but I don't have it at the moment, so it would take me too long to pull it up. But yeah, there was some super cool cuts. I finally got the double Unter, which I missed it every other time in a tournament so far. This is the first time I actually got it in a tournament. So
it's rad.
So when I got that, I was like, finally, geez. So I was happy about that. I think I took fourth, I think, right? Fourth or fifth? Fourth. Yeah, because I wouldn't have moved on if I was fifth.
Yeah.
So I was quite happy with that because I thought earlier on when I messed up one of my cuts that I usually do really well. And I was like, whatever. So I thought I was going to be fifth or sixth. But yeah, it was great cutting. RJ did a phenomenal cut where the mat just stayed there. And we have it on film. I'm sure we probably posted it on our Facebook.
It's the most anime shit I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. And I didn't keep the camera rolling, but he turned to everybody as he nonchalantly walks off, like, yeah, it's easy. But he turned to everybody and went, Sterling Armory's, and I was like, I wasn't rolling with my camera. So. But yeah, he gave us a great shout out there, which was awesome. Yeah, it was a pretty good tournament. And I almost forgot. So all the top 4 competitors were all using Sterling Armory blades. So Yeah, Ryan has a pretty sweet one. So yeah, I think a lot of folks go back and forth on, and sometimes they'll use multiple swords during a cutting event. So I think you have the blue gripped longsword.
Yeah.
But then you also have 12A. Is that right? Angus trim 12A.
So yeah, and I'll kind of bounce back and forth, but I use for whatever Angus trim I'm going to use. But yeah, so I have a 12A.2.
Okay.
And they're like polar opposites.
Yeah.
Those two swords. But yeah, I really kind of started using more the sword that I got from you that you made for me, that blue grip one.
Yeah.
It's really kind of hit a nice sweet spot, and it, particularly with the feats that Phil brought out for us at Fright Fight. Like, I think it did really well. So.
Did you get through the 3 mat stack?
Some of them.
Okay.
Not all of them. That was tough. The 3 parallel mats is harder for me, I thought, than like a triple roll, because I think it has time to slow down or something like that. So it was interesting.
That's the one I was a little upset at myself, because I usually am very good at that. So I did my first one, and then I went bounce, and I was like, what am I doing? So because that's usually one of my favorite defeats. I love doing the 3, 4, 5 mats in a row.
That's fair. Yeah,
I think it's fun.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
So 3 is usually pretty easy, and something's off. But yeah, did anybody get through it?
I don't think anybody completed that feat clean.
Yeah.
Right. I think everybody flubbed at least one cut.
Yeah, but you got through them at least once, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I want to say I missed 2 cuts, or 2. I didn't get all the way through at least twice. I think it was on maybe one of the Unters.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, but it was pretty cool. Hopefully the vlog, which won't take a year, will come out pretty quick. So yeah, I mean, so that's last year Fright Fight. You got gold as well last year.
So I got gold. Yeah, last year. So last year I won the open cutting. Right. So it was kind of my first gold for open cutting, and then after that, Phil kicked me into the deep end of the pool with you guys. So
yeah, and Josh got silver last year, and then didn't compete this year.
Yeah, I did compete. I got first place. Funniest costume.
Yeah. So we have another.
The prize for funniest costume was the head of my enemy.
So that was Ryan's costume, which also shows up quite often in the vlog.
Yeah, in the videos in the background.
He also won an award for that.
Yeah, I get the scariest costume.
Yeah.
I feel bad about it.
There was one girl that was in line. I forget her name. I don't even I think I was properly introduced to her. But she had made her own costume. She was wearing this badass foam armor set that she had made, and then she did not win. And then I felt bad because we were dressed like jackasses, and then we won. And then I talked to her after. I was like, "Did you make all that costume?" And she's like, "Yeah, I did." And I was like, "Oh, sorry." That sucks.
I feel like a jerk. I didn't have nothing else but a $15 horse head mask from Amazon and a plastic sword I picked up off the ground while walking up.
Sometimes that's all it takes. I won a costume similarly in college. I don't know if this is the best story to even tell on Sword Talk, just because it's so stupid. But Twilight was coming out, the part 2 of New Moon or whatever it was, and I worked at Movie Stop, which is like GameStop for movies back east, and I came in for the midnight release, and I competed in the costume tournament, and there were 16-year-old and 18-year-old girls that had taught themselves makeup and rigid collodion and all that good stuff, and then they participated. It was really important to them. And then at the end, I threw my hat in the ring, and I took off my shirt, put a fake werewolf head on, and then howled and flexed a lot, and I won first place, and sent all of them home crying, and I felt so bad. And then, I don't know, about a year later, I was taking a Kenpo class in college just to screw around, and the girl that lost to me joined the class and said, "You look really familiar. Were you at the Twilight thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, were you?" And she was like, Yeah. that was a pretty fun thing, except for this one asshole put on a werewolf head, took off his shirt, and won. And I was like, I was that guy. I'm sorry. And she never came back to class. She told me before she left that day that gave her trauma, and she never got over it. And she cried that night, and she worked so hard. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm an idiot and an asshole. I'm so sorry that happened. And then she never came back to class after that. That was all Uncle Warbear's sad anecdote about winning costume contests.
I think some lessons have been learned.
They have not. They've not learned, but remembered.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, good times.
Ryan, when you first came up with the horse head, I had no clue who you were. Like, I didn't realize it was you. And I was like, hey, that's funny. I don't know who that person is. And then you took it off. Like, oh, right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was pretty funny.
So my goal was to try and screw with you guys as much as I could. Well, and everybody else, right? Because what else are you going to do with the latex horse head mask, right?
Yeah.
We'd be disappointed if you didn't.
Right?
You know what I mean?
So now it's in Josh's hands, so who knows where it will show up next.
It's already showed up a couple times around the house here.
If you know what I mean.
No doubt.
Yeah. I've been pepper sprayed a couple times by the missus.
Random neighbors.
Yeah. Horse intruder.
Yeah. So we had Fright Fight, we had Combat Con, and then so we have another tournament that actually. So as of filming, the tournament's actually tomorrow. But Ryan will be competing there. But yeah, SoCal. If you're in the SoCal area, obviously, I mean, this is going to air way after. So, but there's a little tournament they hold. Does it have a name to it? I think it did, right?
Yes, and it's very creative. I can't remember what it is.
But is it at the SoCal location?
Yeah, so it's at their schools in the city of Tustin. So it's a nice central Orange County, California area. So a whole bunch of schools get a chance to drive up. We've got guys from San Diego to Los Angeles all coming in. So it should be
tell me the
nice.
name of it. Yeah, I didn't get the name. But yeah, so they're doing a local tournament. It looks like your guys have a lot of people there, though. So there's, 10, 11 people competing? Or not more?
I think it was like close to 15 in cutting already.
Oh, is it really? So yeah, that'll be pretty sweet. Is it cutting and then messer? Is that right?
Yeah, so that's the other fun stuff. The other fun part of it is you get to do something they don't normally do. So messer, which maybe that'll be the extra combat tournament they have at SoCal Sword Fight because they usually do some weird thing. It was what was it, Chinkadea last year or this year I should say. So it could be something else like that. That would be fun.
Cool. Yes, SoCal's usually in February, but coming up it'll be in March this year. So that's and then Valley of the Sun is usually in January. That also got pushed back to February, which means we may not be able to make it. So hopefully we can, but because I hate to miss any cutting tournament.
I think it's Valentine's weekend, right? It's like the 14th, 15th, 16th, or something like that. Yeah. So then we got a busy couple weeks there, but yeah, hopefully we can make it. Something else we want to talk about since we talked about cutting is sword sharpness. So that's been kind of a big topic online. Well, not big. It's been a topic online. So Angus's trim has been talking about. He's actually experimenting, making his blades a little bit sharper than he usually does, just for fun. And he was asking the community, "Hey, I mean, what do you think?" And I've always asked that all the time. I think our edges are usually a little bit sharper than his. I think we go a little higher grit than he does. But I think now with this new thing, he's going higher than we are. So, yeah. So Ryan, like most of our, if you're not in the cutting world or cutting competition world, you may not realize a lot of the guys even in open cutting and usually advanced cutting, we typically sharpen our own blades. So even if you're not a maker. So Ryan, actually, I was going to say Ryan's not a maker, but that's not necessarily true. So because there's two pieces there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But sharpness-wise, you want to walk us through your process on sharpening? Or I can do mine first if you want.
I mean, either way, and I'll kind of tell you my perspectives where I came from. Before I was really into swords, I was into knives, and the knife world is
Very
a different level of geekery and precision in what's acceptable and not, and where they want kind of that community. How sharp do you want stuff? And that's on a different level than where knife or where sword people are today. And so my process, because for a sword, I'm not doing anything by hand with stones. I'm using my belt grinder. And my upkeep process is a little bit different than my, hey, I got a new sword or somebody gave me a sword to sharpen. So typically I'll start it around a 400 grit to set the bevel. And I do a convex or an apple seed edge. Kind of like I think most everybody who's sharpening swords is using at this point in time, or should be using anyway.
Yeah, unless you're doing stones on like a Japanese blade.
Right.
I'm pretty sure everyone is doing it roughly the same with a belt grinder and doing an apple seed. I think. I mean, if you guys are watching and you do something different, let us know. So are you using the 1x30, or did you?
No, not anymore. So I got a I can't remember how to pronounce it. Broadback grinders, the same ones they use on Fortune Fire. RJ's got one too, from SoCal Swords, and he'll put out videos where he's sharpening stuff, which is kind of fun. But so I found one on Facebook Marketplace for like half cost. It was used, some knife maker getting out of it, so I jumped on it.
Yeah, they're expensive.
They're brand new. They're like $3,000. It's not a small not a small thing.
Yeah, we found the Origin Blade Maker ones, and they're about half that price normally. I mean, you can get very expensive with them depending on all you add, but we don't usually. Yeah, we usually just use 12-inch wheels or 10-inch wheels, and then the small wheels for fullers. And Broadbeck just came out with that new fullering wheel, which is fantastic. So I have that now too, and that attaches right to any other 2x72 typically. But yeah, we like the Origin ones. Can you flip yours 90? Broadback? Yeah, I think you can.
I haven't done it yet.
It's really nice with fullers, I'll say that. Because horizontal fullers right now, I'm like leaning sideways and doing it like that. So, because I can't flip my 90. So eventually I'm going to get one of the Origin ones. Josh has one. In fact, it might get shipped here. Maybe.
Well, may as well.
Yeah, might as well.
I bought it, a year and a half ago. Spent like $2,500 on the entire setup, and then my garage doesn't operate on the same electrical needs that it has. So I've never even turned it on. It's just been sitting in my shop ready to go. I built it over the weekend, and then plugged it in. I was like, damn.
I mean, he could hire an electrician and change the wiring, but he doesn't want to do that.
Didn't you do a whole bunch of that stuff when you moved into that house too?
Yeah. It's all right. It's a rental, so I'm going to ship it to Fields, and he's going to put it in the shop as my placeholder tool set.
Yep. Yeah. So do you find it a whole lot easier on the 2-inch by 72 versus?
It's so much faster. Yeah. Especially, and the big part of that is setting the initial bevel, right? But it's nice and smooth and super easy to do, and it's
more powerful too. You got a much stronger machine.
Like I went from a 3rd horsepower to 2.
You gotta be careful because you could overdo it pretty easy.
Very quickly.
It heats up faster, so I had to upgrade my my quench bucket.
Yeah.
I guess, a little.
For folks watching, if you're not familiar with blade grinders, so 2x72 is a professional, huge belt grinding machine that can rip. I mean, you can literally grind through a blade in probably 5 minutes if you're not careful.
Or flesh and bone.
Yeah, flesh and bone. But if most of the guys, I can't say most. A lot of the guys who are newer getting into cutting, who wants to sharpen their own blades, they'll usually get the 1x30 like Harbor Freight grinder. Who else has that? Delta has one. Jet has one.
Porter Cable
has one. Yeah, they're available everywhere.
Central Machinery.
Yeah, so you can find one at Harbor Freight. You can find one at Lowe's or Home Depot usually. And it's a little 1x30 belt grinder. It's not set up well for sharpening though. You really got to tweak it, I think. I mean, I'm not sure how you set yours up, but
I just removed the platen. That was
you
it.
got to remove the platen so you're not sitting on a flat surface unless you want that, which you
Not for sharpening.
Yeah, not for sharpening.
Functionally, that was the only thing I did that was different.
Okay, so I had an older one. It actually was going. It was yours. Was the belt going down or was it going up?
It was going down.
Down. Okay, good. So the old one that I had that I got from Harbor Freight, this would have been. Josh, you remember that? It was in the old shop at the old house.
Yeah.
I probably bought that in 2005, maybe.
It's throwing shit up at your face.
Yeah, it went up. so I had to reverse the polarity on it to get it to go the other way, as it should. And yes, and then I took platinum. Did a lot of stuff to it. But
I always think that was a lemon. I've never heard of one going the other way.
Back then they went up. I forgot why they went up, but there was a reason why they did.
I have a Porter cable. I think it's 4x36, and it's same thing.
Yeah,
it spins upwards where it throws everything in your face.
Yeah, which
sucks.
Yeah. So yeah, but those grinders, the reason why most people start with those is they're super cheap. You can get them for $80, maybe even $50. And you usually find them on Craigslist or used, all over the place for $20 probably. Everything's cheap and they're easy to use and they work. So, but eventually, I think the downside to a 1" by 30, no matter which one you're using, is it's only a 1" belt. So 1" can only go so far when you have a 34" 37" long blade and you're drawing it sideways and sharpening it. A 1" is really gonna, what I found, at least for me, maybe I'm just impatient, but it makes your edge very uneven unless you're very careful with it. The other one I didn't mention is the work sharp. So the work sharp's even smaller, right?
Yeah.
What is a work sharp? It's a 1/2" belt, right?
Yeah,
they're
super
1/2
by 12 or something like that.
They're super tiny. So that makes it even worse. But the work sharp has some pluses as it has an alignment thing on it.
It has a angle guide.
Yeah, which the 1x30s usually don't unless you make your own. Which there's some great tutorials from who. Actually, I can't remember who did it. Was it Mike?
Scalgrim has some.
Scal did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of videos on YouTube about how to use a 1x30 to sharpen blades. So.
Oh no, he did one. He did it with the work sharp.
Oh, the work sharp.
That's one he used. Yeah, they're not bad, right? But if you don't have a lot of swords, I've got a lot of swords, and I like using them, so I sharpen them, a couple times a year, plus other people from the club. A 1x30 for me made a lot of sense until I started grinding more stuff, and so I got something bigger. But if you've got a couple of swords that you sharpen a couple of times for a couple of tournaments, either one's fine. And that little work sharp, it doesn't take up any space.
No.
So if you're in an apartment or you're renting a room or something like that, and you don't have a garage or a shop, that's kind of where I think that's a really compelling argument for that one.
Was that originally made for sharpening knives? That work sharp?
Like kitchen knives, yeah.
Oh, kitchen knives. Okay, that works. And it has a little Appleseed adjustment, right? So you can actually adjust how that blade is, or the belt is flexible.
I think it's like a tension that you could use that way. And then there's I think there's like a tool sharpening attachment, which is what Scal eventually recommended, where it has a flat guide, so you place it on there and then you put it on the blade, and it's in between two wheels, so it kind of creates a slack belt sort of thing going.
Okay. Yeah, but once you step up to a 2x72, everything else seems like
a toy.
Because you increase your speed and the time of grinding in half, right? So, it's I've been doing it for 20 years now. So, but yeah, so on the 2x72, I find you can, especially the variable speed ones. You have a variable speed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're just using, like, say you just have a grizzly grinder that's 2x72, you probably don't want to sharpen with that because you can't turn the speed down and you will overheat your edges if you're on there for just a second too long.
Yeah, very quickly. Yeah,
so I have done it. You just have to be super careful. You're just going like a little bit of time cooling it, a little bit of time cooling. And what we do for our cooling troughs alongside of our grinder is basically it's a 4" PVC pipe that's 36, 37 inches long, and the bottom of it's stuck onto one of the closed off toilet drains.
Yep. Flange.
And it seals. One of the closed flanges. It seals and it stays, and that's our water trough. It's $10 at Lowe's. So,
I got to upgrade mine because right now it's a Home Depot bucket.
Oh, really? So you want something that's like, especially when we're doing tons of grinding, right? And the whole blade's hot. You want to cool the whole blade off. So we have, I think you can see it in our how it's made videos. I think you can see our PVC pipes. So that's what that is.
But you don't talk about it a whole lot. You just see it coming out and you dump the blade in.
Probably talk about that.
Yeah. I got two of them. I've got a 4-inch black pipe that's, like you said, 37, 38 inches deep.
You need a wider
flange on the bottom that's full of water. And then I've got an old, like, square bucket that's probably 12 inches high that used to have a bunch of screws in it. So I've got that for my my little one. So one's always cold or, decent temperatured. If it gets too hot, this one's for long blades and knives, and this one is for hilt furnitures that I dip really quick.
Yeah, you need at least like a 6-inch tube now, though, for all of your wide blades that you guys actually your blades. Yeah. You
can't overheat that. There's too much metal. It's like half inch.
Yeah, when you were grinding the big Viking blade, how were you cooling that thing off, or were you not? No.
No.
That was heat treated though, wasn't it?
It was heat treated, yeah.
Yeah.
I had a spray bottle, like a mister. I'd squirt it down with, and then go back for another pass, and then hit it again.
I mean, it's so heavy, you probably want to take a break anyway, right?
Yeah.
A couple of passes, take a break, let it cool off.
I gained some muscle over that process. That heavy. I think it started at like 19, 20 pounds, and then I ground it with edges and fuller. I got the entire blade down to, I think, 12 pounds.
Wow.
So I shed
that's what my
weight off of it.
Yeah, that's what my AR is at. So
we'll put some fullers in it. We've got that now.
Right. I've got just one 2 dish fullers on both sides of it.
Those fullers are
which
nice,
I did with a 10-inch wheel, which, if you do the math, doesn't add up. You can't just do this. I had to line it out and then start dishing it over and over with 20 pounds, just wrapping it around until it was reaching that half-inch bevel mark across the edge.
Yeah.
I'm such a fool. I was like, when I first started hanging out with Chris and we started doing blades, I was all about those giant heavy swords. And Chris was like, nah, man, don't do it. And I know why now. It's such a pain. It's awesome. It's great holding it in your hands. Like Kyle, he did the video about like the Jotunheim Slayer and how badass it was and how ridiculous it was. And it is awesome and ridiculous.
That's still
in a 90s 12-year-old way. Yes. But at the same time, it's awesome as a finished product, but the whole process is just so fucking arduous, man.
At some point, we need to do one of those and actually sharpen it.
Yeah,
that blade wasn't sharp, but we need to actually sharpen one of those and see what we can do with it.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
I'd be down with that.
So on the sharpening. So what we do, we have our 2x72, but I use the variable speed. I turn it down to about 50%. And that's different for every machine that you use. So on our particular, like mine is an old Fear grinder that I have that's adjustable. I haven't got the new Origin blade maker yet. Hopefully I'll have that soon. So we'll have 2 in the shop because Josh's will be there, and then I want to get one too. But I turn it down to 50%. I'm actually running a 4-inch wheel on it. And I slack belt from the 4-inch to the wheel adjuster at the top. And that's where my slack is. So I have a good 10, 15 inches of slack. And I mean, obviously the belt's tensioned, quite a lot. So you're not getting too much dip there, but I just lightly, I don't put any weight on it. I just lightly put the blade on there and just pull it across. And that's all I do. And I start at, I know we did this conversion, Josh. I don't remember our Trizac belts. A100 is, I think it's 200 grit.
I don't even remember. We did. I remember this conversation we've had a few times.
This is why the internet exists.
Right. So we do a Trizac
or pad
A100.
and paper. You know what I mean? Like pad and paper.
Yeah, and I only use 3 belts, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, 4 including the strap. So A100, then we do A30, which I think is 400 grit. Or no, I think it's higher than that. I can't remember the grits, but they're high. So it's usually A100, A30, and then A16, which I think is as low as Trizec goes, which is like 800 grit, I think. It maybe even be higher than that, maybe 1,000.
So
after that.
So the 100 is 220. The A30 is 800, and then the A16 is 1,200.
Okay, so that's what we do, and then we strop right after that.
Yeah, that's functionally what I do. So, I start at like 4. I go 4, 8, 15.
So we usually,
let
me correct. So the reason why we're starting at A100 is because it's usually a belt. So if I had a blade that was already sharp, I wouldn't use A100 at all.
Yeah.
So I'm not resharpening. It's going from a pretty thick, like usually 20 to 30 thou blunt edge. Before we start the Appleseed. So
you're cutting the bevel with it is functionally what you're doing. Yeah, that's great.
A big one too. So or not a big bevel, but you're setting the Appleseed in.
Yeah.
And that's what we typically do. And doing that on a 1, so you can do that on a 1x30. You can get all those grits for a 1x30, and you can get all those grits on a work sharp. That's going to take you much more hours. A lot more hours to do. Whereas on the 2x72, even at 50% speed, that turned down, so you're not overheating it. I think I can sharpen the blade in less than 30 minutes. I think. Yeah. And the longest thing is the strop. Strop takes forever.
Do you put compound on your strop?
I don't. So I know a lot of folks do. It does help. It speeds it up.
Yeah.
I don't because I use that strop on multiple materials. So when you start mixing compound and materials, you really want to have one strop per material. And I don't want to do that. So
that's right.
But so what's happening is when I'm stropping, I'm seeing a little, it's flicking off, breaking off the edges a little bit, and I flip it over, and it just keeps going back and forth. It's like, oh my god, break off already. So, and then finally it breaks off. It takes a little while, but So I talked to a couple guys who are like, you should only need a strop like once or twice. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong. And I talked to somebody else who was like, well, it really depends on the angle you're stropping at. And if you want to, you could crank your angle up and strop it much faster, but you might also actually dull your blade a little bit doing that. So they recommended not doing that. I've tried it both ways. I haven't noticed that much of a difference, but just to be safe, I don't, crank the angle up. So
because you're breaking the burr off, right? So you're at a peak, you've apexed the edge, and there's that little burr that curls over. So what I do, because I'm lazy, I'm not going to sit back and wait for it to break off on leathers. I take a old 2x4 wood, and I run the edge along it like I'm slicing it, breaks the burr off. And it could dull it a little bit, but gets the greater burr off, and then I strop from there, and I just don't worry.
But you're stropping with compound, right?
But I strop with compound, so it speeds that up dramatically.
Which is essentially like a 5,000 grit, or probably not that much.
The like green, what is it? Aluminum oxide, chromium oxide, something like that.
Yeah. So you're adding a grit there, whereas mine doesn't have that. So so there's a couple ways to do it. Either way, I think. So my test to whether or not something is sharp is how easily it cuts through paper. I still use that. Some people just test it on their hair, which
that's what Georgia method.
Naked.
Yeah, I know.
Southern method is you shave your forearm. If you ever see a redneck with a patch of hair missing on his forearm, that means he sharpened a knife recently.
That's Ryan. I wouldn't call him a redneck.
Oh man, it is. So I'm all nice and smooth right here. I have enough swords. I had to learn how to do it left-handed, right? Which is a little tricky because I had to start doing my other arm. Yeah.
I just take. Let's see. I'm trying to find a blank piece of paper. I don't know if I have one. I just literally just take a piece of paper, and then I just see like how easy it is to cut. And if I have any sort, and I try to do it along the whole length. I'm not so much worried about the first 10 inches or so. So I usually start about 10 inches up and just see if I have any catches anywhere. And if I do, I can touch it.
It's great to tell you if you've got a burr or if there's a nick in the blade somewhere, because it will really pull on it.
Yeah, you see it's like, oh.
Yeah, so like I could use my pocket knife, but right. So like if it catches or something where it tears, but you can also kind of look, if anybody else does this at home, right? You can see how frayed it is. because a dull knife won't cut as clean, and you'll get you'll see a lot of the paper kind of tearing up.
Yeah, and you can have a sword that when you're pushing or drawing, it cuts paper, but you can't actually drop it through the paper. It won't cut if you just drop it. And I think that's so. I used to go up to. I didn't used to do the A16. I only went. So what did you say that was? 1200.
12, yeah.
So I used to only go to A30. And A30 and stropped, you can get it to drop through paper, but it's hard. You have to really work at it. Like you have to be super careful on your strop to not dull it back out. Whereas with the A16 and strop, I can just drop it through like no problem. So that's kind of where I'm. And I think you made a comment like you were surprised how sharp ours were in terms of like pieces that you can buy off the shelf.
So if I was going to buy a sword at an event and then go compete with it, I think, and I haven't seen how Gus is sharpening his swords today, but I would say that you guys are the only ones that I would buy off the table and then go compete with.
Yeah. A couple of people have actually done that. So.
Oh, sure.
Matt Roach did that last year at Comic, or this year, I guess I should say, at Comic Con. And he did quite well.
So I did it, the blue-handled sword that you made for me, because I got that at Valley of the Sun January of this year, and I competed with that one too.
Yep. Yeah. I think Angus's new one is higher than 1200. I think. Or it's
kind of what it sounds like. Or maybe he's stropping a little bit differently.
Maybe. Yeah, probably with the compound, right? Because I don't think he used to use compound either when he stropped. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask him. At some point, we'll have to have him on here. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if he is keen for, internet talk stuff. So he'd probably like, nah.
He's kind of shy.
Yeah.
We'll have him in the witness protection looking thing where we black him out and have his voice modulator on.
That'd be perfect.
That'll work.
Yep. But yeah, so there's a lot of cool stuff coming up. Fright Fight went really well. Sharpening, there's I guess for everyone watching it, if you guys do anything different sharpening wise, I'm curious. I do know, in the Toyama Ryu side of the house, anyone doing the Japanese sword arts, their sharpening is very different. They do still use the stones. However, most folks I know, so there's a local crew, Nihonzashi, and they do. Sensei Famal, when he teaches sharpening, it's a beautiful process, and they do it quite well. And but even though he's doing it on stones, he's getting an apple seed on there. So he's like, don't ever do it flat. Make sure, because it's too brittle and too thin at that point. But they do a fantastic job, and just watching that process is like those things you watch to relax. What do they call that? It's not ASMR, is it? It's something else.
That's ASMR. I think is the recording, the voice,
the audio.
Yeah, the audio. I forgot what the visual name is.
It's like Zen, though.
Yeah, I could just watch that all day and just be like, just relax. I don't think I could do it. I have done it before, but I don't think I could do it that much. So I think the other thing with the Japanese sword arts, right, is their edges are a lot harder. So they only have to sharpen their blades maybe once a year, maybe once every couple months, depending on how much they're cutting. But even, the guys doing Toyama Ryu are usually cutting at least once a week, if not more. And I think they sharpen it maybe once every 6 months, maybe once a year. So that's the one advantage, right, to a differentially hardened blade. But yeah, that's why they do it once a year, because you got to take 3 hours to do it, right? Yeah. But yeah, whole different process if you guys watching. I'm sure you can search for that on YouTube somewhere. Somebody will have it.
And it's kind of a completely different skill set too. Yeah. It is. And you've got to be practiced at it and develop and hone and keep that skill active, because you kind of lose it.
Right.
Yeah,
it's not easy. It's also a lot more physical labor, right? It takes a lot of work. Actually, not just their sharpening, right? Their entire polishing process. Right? So that's all different as well.
Yeah, we got it easy.
Yeah, speaking of that, So when we do a tournament here in Florida, we actually, one of the ideas would be is to talk to them and say, hey, we're going to be holding a European cutting tournament here. Would you guys want to hold a Taikai right alongside of it? So there's be like a Japanese cutting tournament and a European cutting tournament side by side, and so we can actually watch each other. I know we've talked about it, but I think people on both sides would like watching the other side. It's just very different. So
I'd love that. I'm sure there's so much we could learn from each other, and I think the mixing of those cultures would be amazing. So yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah. So I think that'd be kind of cool, and hopefully we can actually do that as soon as we get more stuff built out here. So it's going to be a little bit. But yeah, so you're also you've been making stuff lately. You want to show off some of?
I got a couple back here. I'll slide on over. So I brought an arming sword to Fright Fight, but I made a long sword. So obviously I'm using the Hanwei Tinker longsword blade, so I'm not making blades yet. I did buy some 5160 to make some daggers, but
awesome.
But yeah. So mild steel crossguard. I think it was a Type I oak shot typology crossguard. Pretty simple grip, couple of risers, and then brass pommel with and this one I put a little peen nut on it to help save the finish on the back end. It is peened, but I have a peen nut on there.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So are you making your own grips, or is that the same core from the Tinker one?
No, so I'm just buying the bare blade. So yeah, I made the core myself. Nice. I use oak.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And it's 4 slabs glued together. It's all shaped, so it's keyed into the tang, real nice and tight. And then cord wrapped leather over the leather, so you get that nice texture glued in place.
Yeah. So we do the same. We just use poplar.
Poplar,
yeah. So we tend to use poplar mainly because some oaks, you got to be careful because some oaks can
they're acidic.
Yeah, they can rust the steel underneath it. So depends on what you have in between the oak and the steel. So if you have any sort of epoxy or anything, then you're good. But if it's just bare oak, you could rust the tang. I mean, that would take many, many years. But so yeah, we just use poplar, and you never have to worry about it.
I think that was the first tip, Brian Kuntz. Love you, Brian Kuntz. That's the first tip he ever gave me on anything. Like before he knew who I was or I knew he was, I was like, yeah, I'm starting to do scabbards and grips and stuff. And I was like, I use red oak. And he's like, switch to poplar. Yes, sensei. Huh?
Was that on one of the sword forums?
No, it was a Facebook Messenger.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Brian Kuntz, I love you.
Yeah.
Wherever you are. Utah, probably.
Yeah, that's sweet though. So how was the bronze pommel this time? Because I know you had a little bit of issues.
This one turned out real nice, especially since I put the peen block on. So that was real easy.
Did you use brass or bronze?
This one's brass.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I do have some bronze on order. We'll see when that comes.
Use bronze.
I want to use bronze. I do like it.
I like brass for pommels personally too.
But the brass shines real nice. Brass is a nice earthy tone.
I like brass. So there is brass and bronze, right? So historically, you'll see both as pommels.
Yeah. And you were saying that our modern understanding of brass versus bronze just did not exist at that point in time. Anyway.
Yeah, so modern brass that we use now was invented in the mid 1800s, early 1800s.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, before that, brass wasn't a thing. But certain bronzes were close. But yeah, their definitions were a little bit different back then. So when naval brass was invented, that was really the first big brass, right? I forgot what the extra addition is. There's some extra material in there that changes it from bronze to brass. I don't remember off the top of my head. I used to know that. So, but yeah, that's an 18th century or maybe late 17th century. I can't remember. But yeah, relatively modern invention. So you wouldn't have seen it like a medieval pommel or anything. Wouldn't technically be brass, but it'd be super close.
And the coloration isn't that far off.
No,
because there's enough variation anyway.
Yeah, a lot
brass
of modern
is more gold, bronze is more reddish.
Yeah.
Lately, yeah, that's a modern thing, right? So historically, bronzes were more gold a lot of the times, but the more reddish bronzes you see, that also started around the same time when bronzes started becoming architectural in nature. So the additions there to make it stronger turn it a little reddish.
Yeah.
There's still some great gold color. Like we like using that 954, which has that aluminum added into it, which makes it stronger. But it gives it a gold color. It makes it look really nice. So
that's what I've got on order.
954 is my jam. I love it.
Well, your recommendation.
It's the strongest steel is. So
I think I throw it in for everything. Like, I think the other day someone was like, "What do you think of the new Venom movie?" And I was like, "Well, the thing about 954 bronze is superior in every way. It's just color is good, aesthetic is great, the machinability, the grinding, so good."
What are you talking about?
They're like, and they left.
So people have actually made bronze swords out of that 954.
I've got a knife of it.
You do?
I've got a 954 knife in the garage. I never showed anyone. It was supposed to be a cross guard, and it's one of those things where I just was feeling weird that day, and I just went ahead and because 954 is oversized, so if I were to 1/4 inch, and I started grinding on it with a diamond grind, and I found that center line, and the bevel was so even, and it was so unnatural for how messy I usually am on my grinds. I was just captivated by how great and crisp my lines were. So I turned it into a complete dagger, and then I hilted it, and then I kept it, and it's still in the shop right now.
It's pretty, but
I can't bring myself to put it on the table to sell.
So the guys who did the bronze swords out of it, they actually hammer the edges hard, and it does still hammer harden like it work hardens like other bronzes do. So that's why machining it can be tough because it does work hard.
Sure.
Yeah. So if you machine it and you're starting to have a hard time, you might just want to heat it up and let it anneal it back out. So
a hard lesson learned over the years.
Yeah.
Well, your other recommendation, speaking about keeping the pins clean, right, is how to anneal it, and that worked out great. So I did that on this one, and it was like butter.
Yeah, I was surprised you found vermiculite in California. I think it's
I ordered it on Amazon.
Oh, you did it? Okay, so I got so yeah, what we do for those watching, so obviously we threw harden our blades. When we do a full batch heat treat, the whole blade is heat treated, including the tang. So we actually have to draw the tang back and soften it so we can peen it. And the easiest way I learned it from Edgar Chatton, who's a knife maker up in Tallahassee. And he would just heat up the ends with a torch and then drop the blade in vermiculite, which is like a very fluffy, light, it's a fertilizer, I think. But what it does is it creates an environment that it's super slow to cool. And so it usually anneals most steels on the first pass. With tangs sometimes, because if I don't heat up enough, I have to redo it a couple times. I think the most I've done it is 3 times on a blade before it's fully annealed. And yeah, it softens up the tang quite nicely, so you can do the peen pretty easy. So
I don't do that at all.
No, Josh.
I have an oxy. I like hot peening. I'm just
Josh.
I want to get it done, and I want to move on to the next one. Because like when I'm doing daggers, I'm working on like 5 to 8 daggers at the same time. So I want to get them all peened so I can move on to grip wrap. So I'll clamp them in. I've got my oxyacetylene like little mini tank, and then touch it for like 5-6 seconds, and then ball peen it down, and then clean it up a little bit on the Scotch-Brite, and it's good to go.
Yep.
But I used to forever ago drip them just like to quickly cool them off so I could. But then Chris reminded me that that's basically means they're going to be hardened, so they're going to chip if you mess with that. So let them air cool, at least. So I have to get away doing that, because when you're working that fast, you're like, okay, it's cool. I can work on it now, so I don't burning myself. So I've had to just leave them alone and let them cool, and then come back to work on them.
Yeah, I've had. Sorry.
I was going to say, so you're able to heat it up fast enough and centrally enough so you're not like burning your grips through the tang.
Very fast, yeah. I mean, There's been a couple times you'll find out pretty quickly how bad or good your fit and finish is, because if you throw your fit and finish on and then you heat it up with your little brazier and you start tapping it down and then there's still play, so you have to heat it back up and then hammer it down more to get that fit and finish nice and tight. If your fit and finish is really, really spot on the first time, you won't have a problem with that at all. If there's a little bit of slop or a little bit of play, you hammering that down will loosen that up a little bit, and you'll have to hammer it back down and then reheat and then repeen. If you do that, it does get hot enough to the point where you start to smell wood burning, and that's that poplar getting a little smoky. And with a sword, it's not as bad because you've got 2 inches of bronze and tang to get through before it reaches that wood. But on a dagger, where you've got about 3.5 inches to 4 inches of grip, and then and a 1.5, 1.25 inch, whatever I use round, you will start getting that wood heated up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just got the fit and finish. There was a failed experiment where I had Chad Healy 3D print me some grips that I drew out really quick, and that he helped design as well. And he 3D printed them so I could slide it on, hammer it down, peen it, call it good. That didn't work. I got excited. I tried it out, and the minute I started heating it, the very second that heat touched that 3D printed plastic, it just collapsed. By the time I peened the first dagger, I had about a solid inch of tang exposed from where the 3D printed guard melted off.
So, like, why is this not working?
Yeah, back to the drawing board with that one.
Yeah.
Had it been Angus trim swords, that would have been a-okay, because you just would have done the not Angus trim. Well, I guess Angus trim as well as Hanway's, because they have the threaded bit and you just bring them down. So
yeah,
daggers.
I burned enough grips in my time that I was like, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. So I don't know if I was just too pedantic about the peen being right or what, but yeah, I'd always had the heat on too long, and I end up burning the grips, especially because my grips inset into the pommel quite often, a lot. So the wood is actually closer to that tip, so it's going to heat up faster.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I just stopped doing it. So I find I like cold peening it just because I don't have to worry about the heat there. Now I will say, if I'm doing it a different method, so if I'm not doing the compression method and I'm doing more like how Albion does it, where they not only press fit the guard like we do, but they also press fit the pommel before the grip goes on, and then they do the grip afterwards. I've had to do that for a few pieces that were not my own because of the way the tangs are shaped. So if I'm doing it that way, then I'll actually hot peen that way. So if you don't have a grip to worry about burning up, then just hot peen it, right?
Right.
Yeah, so it really depends. I like doing the compression method personally. I just like doing that.
Yeah, I compress my guard on, and then I compress the pommel down and hammer that down till it's nice and tight, make a mark, and then pop it all off, and then I build my grip to spec of where that's going to line up. And I leave a little bit of overage, like decimals of a millimeter, and then hammer it down nice and tight so it starts compressing that wood down on as well. But it's white cord wrap, so it doesn't split the wood, the glue doesn't let go, and then by the time it's peened, it's nice and solid all the way through.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it. So do you have what's your next project lined up?
So I've got a dagger half ground out. Nice. My wife years and years ago bought a dagger from a mall knife store that had some cool swords and stuff.
Classic.
This was like 20 some odd years ago.
Yeah.
And it broke, because of course it did.
Yeah.
I don't know what we were doing with it, but it broke. And so I still had the blade. So I had the blade heat treated because it was actually okay steel. And I put a new tang on it before we heat treated and all that sort of stuff. So it got to like 52 Rockwell hardness. So it's pretty decent, decently hard anyway. But I've been reshaping it. So I'm just regrinding it. So I'll put a new hilt on it. And I actually was making the guard and completely blew a dimension.
All right.
Yeah, I think I doubled something where I should have halved it.
Yeah,
it happens. And so I was sitting around with this brass guard, because it was going to be brass. And I didn't know what to do with it. And I had, actually, it's that sword behind me, that one. That was an old practice sword I made years ago, well before I ever had a mill. So it was all welded. The guard was all welded construction. It looked terrible. but it served its purpose. So that one's probably going to get donated to a local SCA group. So I also play and fight in the SCA, which is like a medieval, nonprofit educational kind of group. And so that'll be probably some sort of like, I don't know, showcase sword or something like that. But,
awesome.
It happened to fit, so I threw it all together.
Do you know? Well, I guess the only steel SCA does is rapier, right? Is that true?
Well, so rapier and something that they call cut and thrust, where you could use swords like this. And I can tell you, this fits the aesthetic for the SCA peeps.
Does anyone
quite a bit? The
Tinker Blades? That was going to be my question. Is they do? Okay.
Oh cool. Yeah. So that arming sword I brought to fight sold right away at an SCA event.
Awesome.
Like a week later.
SCA events then.
Well, so at a day event, no less. But I wasn't a vendor. I just showed up and said, "Oh, I made this. Anybody want it?" And they're like, "Yes." I was like, "Oh, that was hard."
Awesome. Sooner or later,
so we're real excited.
Hopefully, get you making blades for us.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, we can grow our team a little bit. Yeah.
Josh, really, you should. There's a couple of like even multi-day events in your neck of the woods. War of the Phoenix, which is somewhere at the beginning of the year, February-ish. But if you want to SCA, man, a lot of people I can introduce you to. It's a good time.
That sounds fun. I like meeting new people, and if the swords are involved, that's even better.
And I think people would dig the aesthetic of not only your leather work,
especially your aesthetic.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, let's do it. That sounds fun. Yeah. So I was in the SCA. Not a lot of people know this. I was in the SCA at the age of
in Orlando.
16 and 17. No, sorry, Georgia.
Oh, Georgia. Okay.
16 years old. I was a jester. So I walked on my hands and I did flips, and I had people throw me, so I did flips in the air and I did tumbles, and I was terrible. I think my costume was a black pair of sweatpants tucked into combat boots and a shitty jester hat made of cotton my mom made me. Oh, it was embarrassing. All I knew was I liked the ladies' dresses. The men had great beards and armor, and everyone gave me free food, so I always went back. I think it was the White Stag out of Glenville, Georgia. John and Co, I think, were the leads. Man, these names are coming back. I haven't thought about them since 98, 99, 96.
Mid and late 90s, yeah.
Yeah, late 90s, yeah.
So you didn't do any SCA in Orlando, though? I don't know why I thought you did.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, there's a pretty big group in between Jacksonville, Orlando, and Tampa. The whole area. Yeah. I
always wanted to go to the events because all the events are always fun as hell.
Yeah.
They are.
Like weekend camp out Renaissance fairs, but simplified to fighting and drinking mead, which you can't go wrong with.
So Josh and I did the Lady of the Lakes Renaissance Fair for a little bit of time. Actually, I guess Hogtown as well, because the SCA has a pretty large presence in both of those fairs.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would see them quite often. A lot of the HEMA guys in the area also do both, like you do. So they do SCA and HEMA. So, yeah, pretty cool.
Fun stuff,
yeah, the best way to kind of describe between SCA and HEMA is a fighting group with a social problem. The SCA is a social group with a fighting problem. It's kind of reversed.
Yeah, I can see that.
A lot of fun. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I will remember that one. That's very true. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, hey, we're at the hour here, so we'll probably call it a night. I know it's getting late on this side of the country, but yeah, thanks, Ryan. Thanks so much for joining us. We're looking forward to seeing you at the next event, and and hopefully, the more stuff you're making. So, I guess so. Next, Josh will be out here for a little bit, and then hopefully I'll be able to get out there. But at some point, we need to all just tag up and do like a fun Maker's Day. I think that
agreed.
So if you
that'd be real fun. Well, let me know. I work out of Arizona every once in a while, so
I thought you did.
Hey, open invitation. Anytime you're over in Arizona, let me know. We'll hang out over the weekend.
Heck yeah.
Say what?
Gotta get your grinder hooked up.
Oh right. Yeah. Hey, do you know about electrical? You know electricity?
He does have his one our standard. So we use the Grizzly 2x72s.
Yeah.
He does have that one hooked up.
Yeah. Come on by. I'll show you the shop and everything.
Yeah.
That sounds like
fun. We got to make it up to Colton's shop too. So I was hoping Colton was going to be on tonight because he just got that new wheel in, and man, he was always struggling with that center line for some reason.
Yeah, it's crisp as hell. Oh my god!
I was like, I don't understand why you're struggling. Turns out the wheel he was using on his old grinder was so soft that he wasn't getting like a flat grind. Like it was naturally grinding at curve.
Yeah.
So he couldn't get a line because it's just bleh. So now he has a crisper, like hard rubber wheel on there. He's like, "Oh my god, it's so easy." I was like, "It should be."
Now it looks like machine ground blades.
So now
he is a machine.
That's always so pretty though.
Yeah,
like the two-handed falchion of his that I have. That thing is.
Yeah. Ryan's the one who got that two-handed falchion. I always forget that. Yeah, that was gorgeous.
That's it. Yeah, that hurt when I picked it up because it was at Valley of the Sun.
Yeah.
And I got a picture of me holding it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this thing. Yeah. He just happened to put magic into that sword, and then it showed up again at SoCal Sword Fight, and I can't imagine why nobody took that thing home. And so he finally said, "Yeah, it's available." I was like, "Oh no, I got a bonus." Damn. All right.
Yeah,
my kids don't need to eat that much.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think every blade he's doing, and he's just getting better and better. And I mean, same with Josh too. I mean, hopefully me as well. But yeah, excited to see what's coming up, especially when the new shop is done. We're really excited to see what the future is going to be.
Absolutely.
And and more events are popping up. That's right. So one other thing I want to talk about, we talked about it. I think all of us have talked about it at the different events. But one thing I'm hoping to start pushing for, and maybe get it out there in the world more, is more cutting events, meaning more things to do with cutting, including things like team cutting and all that. So if you were at Fright Fight, you saw Warbear's fantastic costume that he won his medal with.
We should have had a video or a picture set up with this.
I know. Well, that'll be in so watch the Fright Fight vlog, which I'll try to get out at least within a week or so here. So, so we're gonna try to see, especially Fright Fight's fun because it's costume based, right? So we might be doing some team costumes next year. See if we can get some team cutting going. And I was also talking about sponsorship from vendors, so I think that may help a lot. I haven't had a chance to actually set all that up yet, but I do want to talk with Arms and Armor and Albion and various groups to see if they'd be interested. So yeah, so just wanted to throw that out there in the universe. So because I wanted to grow, just to do more stuff. So okay, all right. Well, I think we will call it a night there. Thanks again, Ryan, and hopefully we'll have you on again. We need to do a sword movie trivia with you. I think that'd be fun.
Yes.
We haven't done one of those in a while, too, so it's about time.
It's been a minute. Yeah, the last one was such a smashing success. I think the last two were.
Yeah. I think we had like 3 viewers, which was amazing.
So it was fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we had 2 viewers.
Yeah. And I may have fallen asleep and it was on repeat, so I might have been 1.5, but that's all right.
Hell yeah. I like that.
Yeah. I might have been one of the other viewers myself. So
gotta get the views.
Well, again, real quick. My name is Chris. Please find us at Sterling Armory. And again, going back to earlier, because we keep getting questions on it, if you do want to see anything we have in stock, just jump on our Facebook page, check out it, go to our images, because that's where you're going to see it. And when you click on the image, it usually gives us stats of the blade as well as if it's sold or not. So if you see something there that you want, and you're not sure, just message us, and we'll usually reply within 30 minutes to an hour. So so Sterling Armory on Facebook, also Instagram as well.
Yep. Of course, Joshua Von Warbear. You can find me at Warbear_Armory on Instagram or Joshua Von Warbear on Facebook. Ryan, if you have any socials you would like to drop in case people want to reach out with questions or sharpening services.
Yeah. So Ryan Shapiro, you could find me. Well, you could find me at the Sterling Armory booth half the time at any event that they're at.
Yeah,
we're having a good time together. Tattershall.org is the school that I teach at if you're interested in HEMA stuff. But yeah, I don't really do a whole lot of socials, but yeah.
Does Tattershall have a Facebook page?
We do. We have a website that's always in flux, that you guys understand, but it's 90% accurate.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
we'll drop it in the description.
Yeah, can you send me all the links and I'll put them in the description of the video.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll do.
Awesome. Yeah, because I don't even think I haven't found your Tattershall's link on Facebook, so I need to find that myself and make sure I'm on. So awesome. Cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Until then, stay sharp and keep your peens clean.
Later, guys.